So, today we are going to talk about Buddhist concept. Okay, one more thing. I just need to check if you all have the voice dot. Let me just quickly check. Yes, everyone has got the voice dot. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Buddhist concept, and we will try to draw some parallels with the modern positive psychology or with psychology. And I think you all know that I try to connect the dot between the teachings of Buddha and the modern science, specifically neuroscience and psychology. So today our topic is even mindedness, and in Buddhism this even mindedness is known as upekha. It's a Sanskrit word, not apekha. Apekha means waiting, but it's upekha. Upekha means equanimity, or we can say, a state of mental balance. And at many places, we can find the mention of upekha in Buddhism. So it is basically a mental state, a calm mental state that remains steady and impartial towards all different experience that we get in everyday life. It could be pleasant experience, it could be unpleasant, it could be neutral, and just like the name suggests, it's about uh, being even-minded toward all beings without preference, prejudice, or judgment. And if we see our daily life, it is full of different kind of experience. Some food we find it tasty, some food we do not find tasty, some experience are pleasing for us, some experience are not so pleasing. Sometimes we get praises, sometimes we get criticism. Sometimes we get hurt, sometimes we hurt people, not necessarily intentionally, but even without having any intention, sometimes we hurt people. So our life has different kind of experience, and we go through this kind of experience, and our mind, and not only our mind, our body also gets influenced by all these experiences. Hi Ruby, yeah, please have a seat. A lot of uh, cushions are there. So this concept of even-mindedness or upeksha, or a steady balanced state, is there in many philosophy and in many different kind of religion. And if you see, it's very scientific in nature. Even if you look at the world where we are living, the natural world, the trees, or the kind of climate where we are living, there is a perfect balance. There is a equanimity. Uh, if the balance gets disrupted, then it will be difficult for us to stay in that part of the world. So suppose suddenly there are harmful chemicals in the air, maybe a lot of carbon dioxide, a lot of carbon monoxide. It's there in the air. It's not like that it is not there. But the quantity, the amount is in balance. But if it increases, it will be difficult for us to, even breathe. So similarly, uh, everything in this world is in a perfect state of balance. Even the temperature in the world, the sun rays that we get, it is in such a extent that we can tolerate. If Earth was closer proximity to the sun, then maybe there would not have been the kind of life that we are having as a human being. Maybe different kind of life forms could have been there, but not like a human being. Uh, so, in the nature also, the way we get rain, we get different kind of season, summer, autumn, winter, spring. We can see different kind of varieties, and at the same time, we can see the balance. And this balance is very important to sustain the life in this world. Now that we were talking about the macro level, if we come to the micro level, if we come to the life of human being, not only the human being, all the creatures in the world, there also we will find the concept of upeksha. For example, in modern times, we go through different kind of stressful situations every day. Maybe in our personal life, maybe in our work, in our job, offices, in a relationship, we go through different kind of stressful situations, and sometimes we cannot remain balanced. So maybe in a work, someone is praising me and I am feeling very happy. But maybe after 2 days, someone is criticizing me and I am feeling very upset or very depressed. I'm not able to accept the situation there. It's not possible that every day I'll get praise. And here another concept comes about Buddhism, and that is impermanence. Okay, so maybe one day if I get a praise, another day I'll get some criticism, because the nature has the concept of cyclical uh, rotations, or it's cyclical in nature. And sometimes we get upset, sometimes we get excited, sometimes we become very overwhelmed. So we basically dance with the tune of this external stimuli in the world, and we get triggered. So upeksha teaches us that no matter what is happening in the outside of the world, you just remain balanced, you remain calm, and you remain composed, because in the external world this kind of things will keep on happening. It's not in our control. One day something good will happen, another day something bad will happen. One day we will have a very you know, good, joyful day, another day will be a sad, because it's cyclical in nature. And the very profound concept of Buddhism, that is impermanence. Nothing lasts forever and nothing stays forever. So we get triggered most of the time. Maybe in our work, maybe in our personal life, uh, maybe we react. Uh, so let us understand what happens when we get triggered. So triggered is just the opposite of upeksha. Upeksha means no matter what is happening outside, I will remain steady and I will remain balanced. And there are two different kind of systems are at work at the level of our brain and the level of our body. So what happens if we suddenly becomes triggered? And here the word triggered I am using uh, mostly to uh, in the psychological context. So trigger is basically, an emotional reaction to a present stimuli or to a present event. And that reminds our brain either about any past traumatic incident, or it takes us through a very stressful experience. And our brain is not created through the evolutionary process to make us happy. Our brain was created to survive. And sometimes, we forget this thing. I said, oh, why I'm not happy? Brain is not created to make us happy. Brain is created so that, we can survive in the world. Even though the threats have been very sophisticated. I mean, earlier days we had to fight with the wild animals, we had to stay in the caves, and there were a lot of natural calamity. We did not have any shelters, so the threats have changed. But our brain, our brain remained same, uh, perceiving those threats. So what happens when we get triggered? Maybe I got insulted by someone. Someone told something. Something happened in my life and I got triggered. So whenever we get triggered, our survival mechanisms switches on. Our survival mechanism activates. What is survival mechanism? Fight or flight. We all know. Uh, Either I will fight through the situations or I will run away from it. Also, there is another response, that is freeze. Sometimes if we have a massive amount of stress, we freeze. We are not able to do something. And that is why many people have panic attack. You know, maybe someone who is going through anxiety disorder or PTSD or OCD or any other mental health issues, so they have panic attacks. That is the freeze response of the body. We feel numb, we feel mentally paralyzed. Our We are not able to take any decisions and we just become numb. Now what happens when we have this when this survival mechanism is activated? The first that it does, it activate our amygdala. And amygdala is a fear center in our brain. Anything, it could be a sight, it could be a sound, it could be a smell, it could be particular tone of voice. It catches it and it interprets as a threat. And what amygdala does, amygdala bypass the logical part of the brain which takes logical decisions, and that is prefrontal cortex. So when amygdala is hyperactive, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. And sometimes, even unnecessarily, we become so stressed and so panicked and we do stupid things. Why? Because the prefrontal cortex is not in order. I mean, prefrontal cortex is not working. The amygdala is taking the control. And then what it does, the amygdala sends a signal to the hypothalamus. And hypothalamus, it's a kind of control center for the stress response. And the third thing which happens, it activates sympathetic nervous system. We have two different kind of nervous system, sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. And what this sympathetic nervous system does, it signals the adrenal glands to flood the body with stress hormones. Primarily two different kind of stress hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline. So this is the physical change, uh, what happens inside our body. Okay, so maybe we might think that, okay, I got upset, I got triggered. It's not only at the level of our mind, but it is at the level of our brain, and it is at the level of our entire physiology. So there is a hormonal storm which happens inside our body when we get triggered. And then the physical changes happen. Suddenly our heart rate and our blood pressure increases. Okay. Again, this is a survival mechanism, because when um, our heart rate increases and our blood pressure increases, it sends blood to major muscles, mostly our arms and legs. So either we can fight or we can run away from that situations. Our breathing becomes rapid. You might have observed, when you are very calm and composed, your breathing is rhythmic. Your breathing is like a, like even. I mean, there are some specific um, seconds you are inhaling, and there are some specific seconds you are exhaling. There is a rhythm between that, okay? But suddenly, when you get stressed, our breathing becomes rapid, haphazard, chaotic, and we can change our mind, because our mind and our breathing is intertwined. So if we change our breathing, it will impact our mind. But that is a different topic. Maybe another day we can touch upon that topic, that how our breathing and our mind is connected. Then our muscles tense up, you know, uh, especially our jaw, our shoulders. The perception of pain decreases, which allow us to continuously fight or running. Uh, our blood is diverted from the gut, so energy is reserved for survival, and we start sweating more, because when we sweat, it cools the body in anticipation of any intense physical exertions or any physical activities. So these are the things which happens in our body. The third thing is a freeze response. When we the body become numb, and the body become heavy. So here what happens, the heart rate might drop, and this is a evolutionary survival strategy. uh, what happens in this freeze mode, the body again goes into the parasympathetic nervous system, because if our body is in the sympathetic nervous system or fight or flight mode, it will harm our body. So there should be a balance. So body comes to the freeze mode and it gets some rest, you know. uh, and when we are in the parasympathetic nervous mode, slowly our heart rate becomes normal, our breathing becomes slow. So the freeze, even though it's a kind of uh, conditions or the state of immobility, for some short amount of time, the body takes itself to the parasympathetic nervous mode so that our body gets some rest. And again, maybe we can go back to the fight or flight syndrome. So this is what happens inside our brain and inside our body whenever we get triggered, and any kind of overwhelming emotions we might have. So maybe we have become very angry, maybe we have become very upset, maybe we have become very excited. So there is a biology behind all this emotional state. Now, what does upeksha teaches us? So upeksha teaches us to develop the kind of mindfulness, or the develop the kind of conditions where we can observe, you know, all these physical sensations and emotional conditions without any immediate reaction. And sometimes it happens involuntarily. It is not in our control. We get upset, we get angry, and our blood pressure shoots up. Our breathing becomes rapid. So you might have a question, then how do I change it? If it is automatic, embedded in our human body, how we can change that? Yes, we can change it. And there is one practice which can change the way our brain perceive a different kind of threat, or our the way we get triggered. So how we can change it? So mindfulness plays a very important role, and through mindfulness we train our mind, our brain, and our entire body for developing non-reactivity. So non-reactivity is a scientific term, but it's very similar to upeksha, being calm in, in a very hot weather, in a very cold weather, even when we are having a good food, or even we are having not so tasty food, when we are having praise or when we are getting criticism, when we are having pain in our body and our mind, or when we are having pleasure. And mindfulness plays a very important role for this developing this state called upeksha. How does mindfulness help? So mindfulness increases the gap between a stimuli and the trigger. So mindfulness training increases the time and distance between you know, this sensory stimuli and these automatic physical reactions. So suppose, for example, uh, when we are practicing mindfulness, or maybe we are sorry, we are practicing, breathing mindfulness. We know there are different kind of mindfulness: breathing mindfulness, body scan mindfulness, loving kindness mindfulness, walking mindfulness. So the most common and the foundational mindfulness is a breathing mindfulness. And in the breathing mindfulness, what we do, we observe our mind. We observe our mind wandering. So we focus on our breathe, and when our mind wanders, we slowly, gently, compassionately bring it back to the sensation of our breathing. So this repetitive exercise trains the mind to notice the emotional cue. For example, suddenly there was any situations or any stimuli, and you notice that anger, beginning to rise before it becomes, a full-blown trigger. So you get the hunch, or you get a mental faculties to scan that you are going to become angry. You are not fully angry right now, but you become aware that anger is rising inside your mind, and this particular awareness is good enough to manage it. So sometimes what we do, we practice called decentering. What is decentering? So in the decentering, or non-identification, we don't say I am angry. We say that a feeling of anger is arising in my mind, in my body. I am not angry. I am a witness. I witness both anger. I witness both non-anger. I witness both happiness. I witness sadness. So witness, it's a kind of witness is a kind of consciousness. Uh, in Sanskrit, we call it sakshi. Sakshi means something which is seeing everything, all the various spectrum of experiences. So this witness is a kind of consciousness. I am not angry. I am the witness which is noticing that the anger is rising in the body. So when we develop this kind of mental faculties, then we manage the anger in a better manner. We don't let it become a full blown anger, and we avoid the trigger. So what mindfulness practice does, it increases the gap between the stimuli and this automatic physical responses. Also, it has been found through mindfulness, we strengthen our brain mostly in those areas which takes logical decisions. Because when we get triggered, sometimes we become too emotional and we take emotional decisions. We do not take rational decisions. So the first region which is very important is amygdala, and amygdala is an alarm center in our brain. And for normal people, those who do not meditate or those who do not practice mindfulness, usually it becomes very hyperactive. you know but if you practice mindfulness at least for 8 to 10 weeks, the amygdala, the research has found the reduced reactivity in the amygdala. So amygdala sends fewer and weaker distress signals, and the body do not act in the same manner, like I was discussing. Also, through mindfulness, the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC, or the logical center of our brain, gets stronger. So it comes into the control, and the amygdala become less active. So when the prefrontal cortex is in control, uh, it works as a regulator, and the amygdala takes a backseat. There is another brain region called insula, which is responsible for any body sensations or feeling or awareness, bodily sensations. So it has been found that those who do not practice mindfulness or meditation, so this insula is either very inactive or overwhelmed. But those who had practiced mindfulness, it leads to the greater non-judgmental awareness of our bodily stress and different kind of stress cues. So there are many research which has been conducted for mindfulness based meditations, mindfulness based stress reductions, that is MBSR. And they have found that after different scanning, mostly fMRI, that is functional magnetic resonance imaging, that after a short term mindfulness like 8 weeks to 10 weeks, and long term mindfulness, those who has been practicing mindfulness for years or vipassana for years, uh, they have shown a reduced activation of amygdala. You know, and when we have reduced activation of amygdala, we become more emotionally mature, because amygdala most of the time, mess up things. And I mean, amygdala is not only get activated for negative situation, also in positive situations as well, when we become very hyperactive. So the reduced activations of amygdala, this is one of the finding through research. The second is uh, our brain, I mean, it gets less prone to being triggered. Okay, so when we are practicing mindfulness, uh, we are training our brain not to get triggered, you know, every single time we go through any kind of unpleasant situations. We are literally uh, weightlifting, just like we lift weight. So mindfulness is kind of weightlifting for our brain, because when we do mindfulness, it consistently exercising different kind of neural pathways, responsible for our emotional regulations, and making the brain and mind more resilient and even-minded when facing any kind of triggers. So we and it has been found that once we develop this kind of brain, or you can say meditator's brain, or you can say monk's brain, or you can say Buddha's brain. Now, even when you are not meditating, even when you are not doing mindfulness, you can still you know avoid this kind of trigger. You can still dodge this kind of trigger. So this change is a long lasting for those people who meditate every day. Also, they have found that there is an increased functional connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, which is very important for emotional regulations. So, whenever any trigger occurs, uh, the brain establishes, a stronger connections, the pathway between the emotional and the rational decisions. It will not happen in a single day. It will take some time, but over the time, our mind will become more mature. Our brain will become more mature because some people are naturally very inclined towards this kind of trigger, or maybe those people who had some kind of mental health disorder, could be PTSD, could be borderline personality disorder, could be bipolar. They are naturally very prone to this kind of trigger. So this is how mindfulness can help them. So even if a person has gone through any kind of trauma, there also the study says that mindfulness can mitigate the negative impact of those kind of trauma. So the basic concept of mindfulness is staying in the present. And those people who had traumas, they are going back and forth. They are replaying the mental movies about the things which had happened maybe 10 years back. And mindfulness help us staying in the present moment and not to go back on those flashbacks. So the upeksha in Buddhism is about being even-minded, you know, mentally steady. I mean, it's like unshakable mental balance. That no matter what is happening outside or inside, you know, it's not only outside, even it is, inside as well. And most of the problem in our life happens not because of outside event, but how we are interpreting them or how we are reacting with them. So it's not what happens with us, it's how we interpret and how we, you know, perceive. And this is how we can become more emotionally stable, we can become more emotionally intelligent. That is one of the core concept of positive psychology, and how we can become more calmer person dealing with different kind of situations in everyday life. Mara in Buddhism comes to us, tempt us in different form, and Mara is still present every day. And the upeksha or even-mindedness teaches us not to pay heed to Mara. Let him come, let him tempt us, let him make us angry, but I will remain calm and composed, just like the Buddha, like being like a lotus in a flowing water. So that was all about today's talk. Now, if you have any question, if you want me to repeat something, or if you want to share your experience, um, you are welcome to share, because here we learn from each other's experience. You can speak on your mic or you can type in the local chat. I think I have increased all of your volume, and yeah, so we can just take some questions and then we will close our sessions. Yeah. Anything you'd like to share or anything?
I have a question, Bodhi. You mentioned that we need to meditate daily. Now, are we supposed to meditate like how many times a day?
Okay. Okay. So, Amy asked this question, right? Amy? Yeah. Did you ask the
Yes.
question? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So, uh, what happens? Mindfulness rewires our brain, and how rewiring happen when we do something repetitively. Then the rewiring is more stronger, and we create different kind of neural networks. The more neurons grow, that we call neurogenesis. More connection grows, that we call uh, you know synaptogenesis. So from the neuroscience perspective, if you want to get better outcome from mindfulness, it is better to do mindfulness twice or thrice in a day, even for 5 minutes, rather than doing 15 minutes at a time. So what many people do, they have a routine that every day they are going to do half an hour of mindfulness. Yes, that is fine, that is good enough, but it is more beneficial rather than doing half an hour a single time. If you do 10 minutes in the morning, if you do 10 minutes in the afternoon, and if you do 10 minutes in the evening, because repetition is happening, and each time you are repeating something, you are training your brain. So from the scientific perspective, if you can do it, see, sometimes it's difficult for doing thrice a day. I mean, we are not Buddhist monks, we are not living in a monastery, but at least if we can do twice a day, even for 10 minutes, that is good, instead of doing 20 minutes once in a day. Yeah. Fine, Amy?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for that
Wonderful.
information.
Yeah, most welcome, most welcome, Amy. Okay, so Sophie was writing something. Let me just check what Sophie was writing. My emotions change frequently and are very strong. Understanding how my body and mind works has been helpful for me to recognize what happens to me. Mindfulness and I understanding gives me choice. I can say I feel angry or I feel scared. I can make choices like pausing to breathe, slow myself down. I remember in calm there is strength. This is not perfect and I fail often, but I recover faster. And yeah, that is absolutely fine, Sophie. I mean, no one is perfect in the world, and we all stumble, we all become emotionally triggered. But if we can develop this insight that I am becoming triggered, I am becoming angry, this particular witness is good enough. It's a good pointer to again go back to the state of calm and to the state of equanimity, a state of upeksha. Okay, there is a formal meditation sitting down, which is good practice. However, doing things mindfully, walking, cooking, driving, these are meditative practices in the field rather than in the ideal situation of. Yeah, exactly. So this is the best thing about mindfulness, that you can attach mindfulness with any activity that you are doing. So the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, he kept on saying in different books that he used to do mindfulness while washing the dishes, while sweeping the floor in the monastery, while you know washing the clothes by his hand. So mindfulness, it's not necessarily that you are sitting in a cross leg positions and doing it intentionally for 10 minutes. Yes, if you can do that, that is wonderful. But if we are living in a very busy life, even you can attach with something that you do in a everyday manner, like brushing our teeth, that we can do mindfully, or washing the dishes, that we can do mindfully, or what we are walking, that we can do mindfully. So we can attach it to some daily activities, and from there also we can extract some time for our practice. Yes, Aaron. If something you are doing with intention, we are doing it mindfully by, automatically we are doing it mindfully. Uh, but, I mean, suppose um, if we are doing any activities which is constantly distracting our mind, then it is not a mindful. For example, nowadays we see a lot of shorts or reels on YouTube or social media. Even though we are doing it for the intention of seeing that shorts for 1 minute and then changing the another shorts, it will not let us become mindful, because each time we are swapping, it is giving a different kind of data or informations, and our mind get distracted. So yes, but with intention, when we are doing something, yes, we are doing it mindfully. But in some activities, we are not able to become mindful. Suppose when we are doing something multitasking, so it is better to not to do multitasking or any other things when we are practicing mindfulness. So Amy says that I have severe anxiety to the point where it is uncontrollable. How do I get into mindfulness when my brain feels frozen or numb, like you mentioned? So Amy, if your anxiety goes to that level that you go to the freeze state, it is best not to do mindfulness at that point of time. What you can do at that point of time, you can do some kind of breathing. You can do some kind of deep breathing, uh, and when you feel calmer, when you feel um, balanced, then you can start doing mindfulness. So it's very difficult to practice mindfulness in a state of panic, and I myself have had this kind of situation, and I could not do mindfulness with those state of panic. So what I did, I let the feeling pass, I let the situation pass, and when I felt a little better, then I practice mindfulness. So in that free state, you just take rest, relax, do some deep breathing. You can just do some walking. Maybe you can listen to some music, and when you feel a little better, then you can practice mindfulness. And also, you can do some kind of physical exercise. Physical exercise does not mean going to the gym. You can just do some walking for 15 to 20 minutes, because when we walk or when we do any kind of physical exercise, it releases um, endorphins. It's a feel good hormone. And just right after the physical exercise, you will find that your mind suddenly feels calmer. And at that point of time, you can practice 5 to 7 minutes of mindfulness. Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Okay. Fine. So thank you so much for. Okay. Sophie says something. In my experience, focusing on breathing is a type of mindfulness. Sometimes in big emotional storm, all I can do is focus on breathing. Yeah, exactly. Just focusing on breathing in and breathing out will, will, uh, what should I say, will take you out of a lot of trouble. So breathing is definitely a form of mindfulness, especially when we are focusing on our breathing sensations. So Saren said, I have dealt with severe anxiety too for many years until I realized I was bigger than anything that was causing me anxiety. It was all in that. True, true. I mean, Uh, Sometimes, we have to practice this decentry. You know, I am not anxious. The anxiety is there in my head or in my mind or is giving me some trouble, but it will pass. That is the, impermanence. So nothing is constant and nothing lasts. Even you are suffering with anxiety, there are some time in a day when you are not anxious, when you are relaxed, you are calm, and that will be the perfect time to practice mindfulness so that the gradually you become less anxious, you become less stressed, your brain changes, your biochemistry of the brain changes, and your life become better. And that is the root of positive psychology and the teachings of Buddha. So Buddha was all the teachings of Buddha is experiential in nature. Buddha did not study any religious books, but through meditations, through his own realization, he came up with all this concept. Okay, so I think today we could learn from each other, and I'm so glad you all started sharing your experience. And when we share this experience, we feel or we realize a truth, that is, we are not alone, or we are not the only person who is suffering. And from that point, so, Buddhism starts that we all are suffering in our own way, and there is a way we can transcend this suffering. Yeah, Sophie said amygdala triggers stress response, body mind connection. Yeah, exactly. Amygdala is the culprit, Sophie, but can recognize when this is happening and improve skills for dealing with it over time. These are the exactly that is what mindfulness does. So when we practice mindfulness every day, we get the mental faculties or we get the insight through which we can have the insight that what maybe I'm going to become very angry, maybe I'm going to become very hyperactive, and we can mitigate that, we can manage that. So definitely mindfulness gives us this kind of skills. But yes, it will not happen in a single day. It will take some part time, but definitely it will happen. Okay, so thank you so much everyone to spend your Saturday morning with me. Hopefully next Saturday again we shall meet and we will discuss and we will learn something new. I will put this up on the YouTube channel and I will send it to Sophie, and then you will get it from the Discord channel. And I just wish you all have a wonderful week. And next Saturday again we shall come and we shall learn from each other. Thank you so much everyone and namaste. Bye for now.